Right, we have the quorum. It's time to make a start. Please be seated, members. Item 1, Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation gazetted between June the 15th and September the 28th. I'm speaking into the mic, but it's too short. Please be seated, members. I am shouting. I can hear what I say. LC paper number LS2/12 to 13. Legal advisor, please. Chairman, thank you. This is the first House Committee meeting of the 5th term. There are two main parts in this regard. During the 4th term, or towards the end, couple of weeks towards the end of the term, there were subsidiary legislation submitted, but this would cut across the 4th term and the 5th term. So in relation to this part of the subsidiary legislation, we have to bring members up to date, and if necessary, we can have a resolution for the scrutiny period to be extended. LS2, if I may, Chairman, if members refer to Appendix A 105 to 109. Members told me that for 109, there is public pleasure grounds at West Kowloon that will be transferred to the WKCDA for management. Any questions? Ms. Sitho? Chairman, I did ask the legal advisors outside regarding the public pleasure grounds that will be transferred from the LCSD to the WKCDA. We understand that the LCSD does have its own style of management, like no sleeping, no guitar playing, no singing within the precinct, and so on. We expressed concerns at the Home Affairs panel as to whether the WKCD would be as strict as the WKCD. Now, these pleasure grounds will be transferred. We'd like to hear from the WKCDA as to how they are going to manage this waterfront promenade. If they were to adopt the same bylaws used by the LCSD, how would they transfer the details? Perhaps we can have an extension for this to be looked at. Yes, we'd like to have a subcommittee. Any objection? No? Who would like to join? All right, the Secretary would jot down the names. I will, on behalf of members, seek to have an extension from October the 17th to November the 7th. The Secretariat will circulate further invitation to members. You wish to join? No, very briefly, I'd like to put this to the legal advisor. Now, if these are transferred to the WKCDA, does it mean that the LCSD bylaws will not be adopted? Yes, but the WKCDA will have their own bylaws. That's correct. LS2, Chairman, there is the other part, gazetted between July 13th and September the 28th, and they will be submitted to the Council next Wednesday for scrutiny. All the details are set out in Appendix B of the paper. Chairman, Appendix B, they will be tabled on October the 17th. In paragraph 4, members may be concerned that the severe respiratory disease associated with novel coronavirus. Under the relevant legislation, the Director of Health has, under the relevant ordinance, incorporated this disease as a notifiable disease. If members are interested, you might wish to scrutinize this. Now, this has gone into effect on the day it was gazetted because it involves public health. Chairman, if I may take this opportunity to say that there are a couple of items enacted under the UN Security Ordinance. And the UN Security Council imposes or endorses certain resolutions regarding sanctions for certain countries. And under the UN Sanctions Ordinance, these are implemented in Hong Kong, and these do not have to be submitted to LegCo for scrutiny, although they are subsidiary legislation. Previously, we had the subcommittee set up to scrutinize these provisions. Perhaps it's up to members to decide in this term whether the same practice would be adopted. Comments? Mr. Ho. Chairman, I was a member of the subcommittee to look at the UN sanctions. There are two experienced members who are no longer here working for us, and I hope that the subcommittee would continue to stay. Now, we did suggest a template for these kind of legislation. Now, 139141, there are problems with the drafting, so I hope that there would be a standing subcommittee to look into this. Yes, Mr. Ho proposes a subcommittee. Any objection? If not, who wishes to join? All right. These four items under the UN Sanctions Ordinance will be referred to the subcommittee, and we will be inviting members to take part if they so wish. The remaining 6 items, any comments? Do you see the need for a subcommittee? Chairman, the one about legal aid, I think, is only right for us to have a look at it. Legal aid is for the next item, not this one. Beg your pardon. Chairman, I was talking about LS2, paper LS2. If members don't have any further questions, if members have any questions, we'll be only too delighted to answer them. And we stand ready to take members' questions on other occasions. All right, for the remaining 6 items, the deadline for amendment is November the 7th. All right, the next one is Legal Service Division report on subsidiary legislation, gazetted on October the 5th. LC paper LS3/12 to 13. Legal advisor. Well, Chairman, these are items of subsidiary legislation gazetted during this term. They were gazetted on October the 5th. We have submitted a report. There are 2 items to do with legal aid and also the immigration ordinance. There was a commencement notice, and this provides the framework of application relating to the Convention Against Torture and also the construction industry legislation commencement date the construction workers registration authority will be dissolved. The function will be transferred to the Construction Industry Council. I heard a moment ago that from a member that he would like to have a subcommittee looking into the legal aid regulations. Any objection? Who wishes to join? Okay, there will be further invitations to members as usual to see whether members would like to join also. Deadline for amendment is November the 17th for the ones that are not being scrutinized. Also, I have received from Mr. Chen Hek-kan an urgent question on October the 17th. I will deal with this later on at AOB. All right, business for the council meeting on October the 17th. Mr. Raymond Wong will be swearing in again. All right, address by the Chief Executive. Please refer to LC paper number CB3, 19/12 to 13. Ms. Emily Lau. Now, he was here for the past meetings. He was here a moment ago, but I'm talking about the previous meetings for election of chairman. I mean, would this be a valid legal advisor? Starting from October the 10th, for the meetings that were held, whether it be council meetings or other meetings, like the election results and so on, I mean, they should not be affected in any way.
Why is that so, Chairman? Chairman, when we scrutinized the issue, we studied all the legal principles. If because of any issue at all, if someone attended a meeting and took part in a vote, and if the status was in question, well, the result on the voting outcome would be that if that particular vote had a crucial impact on the voting result, and we had looked at the relevant facts, and for example, the election of chairman of the main committees, etc. At the moment, we are not of the view that there is any legal effect on the validity of those voting results. Mr. Paul, Chair, thank you. I'd like to ask the legal advisor a question. Just now we were talking about the validity of votes taken. That has been handled by the legal advisor, but I'd like to ask another question. We are going to elect chairman and vice chairman of many panels soon. Before a member is formally sworn in, does he have the status to stand for the elections? Well, according to the rules, if he has not been sworn in according to the relevant rules, he cannot attend the meeting or take a vote at any meeting. And from the start of this term, unless this member is disqualified, the member has still been properly elected and he still has the qualification as a Legislative Council member. His term as a Legislative Council member has started. In our House rules, we deal with members who are absent from meetings. They can still be nominated, but at the time of nomination, the nominee, or actually the one making the nomination, must point out that the nominee has already agreed to be nominated. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng, I have a question for the legal advisor, please. If a member has sworn in, he has read out the oath or affirmation, but he has not signed on the papers, is the swearing in still valid? Chairman, the signature is not regulated by any rules or regulations. The important thing is to read out the oath or affirmation in full. The signature is taken in such that it is a convention of the legislature of Hong Kong. Okay, thank you for those clarifications. Mr. Leung Kwok-ong. Chairman, does the legal advisor mean that Mr. Wang Yuk-man's mandate is still valid? It is just that he has not been formally sworn in, so he cannot attend meetings. Is that right? So he cannot discharge his duties. So first of all, he's still a Legislative Council member. Secondly, apart from attending meetings, well, he cannot attend meetings, and he, of course, cannot take a vote, but he still has other powers as a Legislative Council member. Is that right? Chairman, with regard to the part on mandate in the question, that is not a legal concept in the laws of Hong Kong. Secondly, but if someone has not been elected but he has been properly sworn in, does it mean that he still is a legislative councillor? If you say the mandate is not what matters. Chairman, well, whether the mandate is important or not, it is up to everyone's personal interpretation. But according to the laws of Hong Kong, and also the basic law, Article 104, the legislative councillors must be sworn in. And the local laws of Hong Kong, the Oaths and Declarations Ordinance stipulates that when the term starts, members should be sworn in as soon as possible, and the wording of the oath or affirmation is regulated by law. But legal advisor, someone has been returned by electors, and he has been declared to have been formally or properly elected, so he has the mandate. Unless you say he has not done a proper job in a few months, and according to the Legislative Council Ordinance, Mr. Zhang Yuxing, the President, would say that he will be disqualified as a member. Now, at that point, he will be disqualified. But then, the EAC has already declared him to have been properly elected, and he is now a councillor. It is just that he coughed during the swearing-in ceremony. And if you say the mandate is not important, I am really shocked by you. You understand he is already a councillor. Mr. Leung Kwok-ong, please listen to the SG. Chairman, allow me to add a point. Now, if the legal advisor has other views, please do supplement me. But my understanding is that the term of Mr. Wang Yuk-man has started on the 1st of October. On the 10th of October, he was being sworn in, but after considering the legal advisor's view, the President is of the view that that is not in accordance with the rules of procedure. Therefore, Mr. Wang Yuk-man has requested to take the oath again at the meeting of the Council on the 17th of October, and the President has given his approval. Between now and the 17th of October, before Mr. Wang Yuk-man has taken the oath, as the legal advisor said, he cannot attend meetings. However, it does not affect him being nominated at panel meetings. I hope I have helped to clarify the situation. Well, legal advisor, he is a councillor, right? It is just that he has not taken the oath, so his powers are limited. He cannot take votes, he cannot attend meetings. Is that right? No, I'm not arguing with you, but I just like to make this absolutely clear. Now, if he is not a councillor, he cannot stand to be elected as chairman of panels. And my view is, once someone has been declared elected, he is a councillor from the 1st of October, not on the 30th of September, because there are still councillors of the last term. And now you say that he has coughed during the taking of the oath, and some of his powers are limited. Now he can still return to his office. You know, an average person, any man in the street cannot just come into the Legislative Council and say he has an office here. So formally speaking, he has got the mandate from electors. He has been a councillor since the 1st of October. It is just that he has not taken the oath in full, and the president is of the view that he has contravened the rules of procedures of the council, so some of his powers have been taken away from him. But then there is no question about him being able to be nominated for chairmanship of panels. Is that right? I'm not arguing with you. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong, it is Mr. Wang Yuk-man who wrote a letter to request to take the oath a second time. Now, of course, that means he is a councillor before he can request to take the oath again. Any man in the street cannot ask for the taking of the oath again. Well, we should not be arguing. This is just a procedure. No, that has an effect on whether Mr. Wang Yuk-man can be the chairman of a panel. The legal advisor has already said that there is no effect. If you have understood him, he would have said that there is no impact. Mr. Kenneth Leung, I'd like to ask this on behalf of Mr. Wang Yuk-man. He coughed during the taking of the oath, but would that mean that some of his remuneration or stipend would be subtracted from the sum? My understanding is no. Mr. Ronnie Tang, I'd also like to share with you my view. The law does not say whether a member has mandate. It just says whether a member has been elected and returned in the election. If that's the case, you have to take the oath or affirmation according to the wording in the law. And if you refuse or you do not take the oath or affirmation because of any reason, you will be disqualified. My understanding is Mr. Wang Yuk-man did not refuse to take the oath, and neither did he not take the oath for any reason. It's just that he did not do it in full. So according to the law, he has been elected, but he has to take the oath as soon as possible before he can work as a legislative councillor. This is my understanding. I don't know whether the legal advisor agrees with me. Thank you, Deputy Chairman. He has really clarified and elucidated what I said a moment ago. Next item on the agenda, addressed by the Chief Executive. The Chief Executive will come to the Council in accordance with Rule 8.8 of the Rules of Procedure to elaborate on his concept of governance, review progress made in the first 3 months of the fourth term government, and outline his policy direction and work priorities in 2013. The Chief Executive will probably speak for 45 minutes. Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, I can see the letter from the Chief Executive to the President. He said that according to Rule 8A of the Rules of Procedure, he will be addressing the Council. But does it mean that after he has spoken, he will not be here to answer questions? Sometimes the Chief Executive would come according to Rule 8B of the Rules of Procedure. Whether he comes here to read out his policy address or talks about his work, he should leave an hour or an even longer period of time to respond to members' questions. Chairman, is it your understanding that he will just come out and read out his address and go? That is not unacceptable. The SG. Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Emily Lau's question is about the CE's plan on that day. Our understanding is that on the 17th of October, the CE will come here and talk about his concept of governance, and he has no plan to answer questions. Chairman, this is exactly what I cannot agree to. Some more members, I understand, are queuing up to speak. I hope members who are going to speak will also express the view that he should be answering our questions after giving his address. Sometimes, after reading out the policy address, the CEO would come on the second day to answer questions. He cannot come here to speak and then say that his subordinates, the accountability officials, would be answering questions. That is not right. He has moved the date of the policy address to next year, but in any case, he should answer questions. The SG has told us the intentions of the CE, but I disagree with that. I am of the view that on Wednesday next, when he comes here and addresses the Council, he should leave time for members' questions and answers. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. I have the same view, Chairman. In the past, the CE would be here and then there would be time for elucidation. In other words, members would have the time to ask questions on the contents of his speech. And of course, there is also the Q&A session with the CE. Elucidation took place before, but why is it that there is not this part after his address this time around? Well, the CE wrote to the president saying that he would like to come according to Rule 8A of the ROP. And reading 8A, it means he would just read out the address and he will leave. Okay, I've heard members' request, and to save time, I would propose to do this. If this is your request, I will write to the administration and tell the CE that our colleagues would like him to stay behind for elucidation or for answering questions. Okay, I propose to do that unless members have other views. Some more members have pressed the button to speak, but to save time, I propose to do this. Is that acceptable to you? Okay, if that's the case, I will write to the administration right away. Any more questions? If not, then questions. Sorry, speaker not coming through. Questions. There will be 20 questions, 6 oral and 14 written. Mr. Leung Kwok-hong? Unless you don't allow people to press buttons, why is it that you did not allow me to speak? I could not see the button pressed on my computer screen. Sorry, then there is a misunderstanding. I have already pressed the button. Well, Mr. Ronnie Tong can tell you that the button just came on. Well, I think there is some misunderstanding because the chairman said already that he would be writing a letter to the administration, and if we were on the same point, he would like to save time. Now, I'd like to make a proposal to the chairman. Now, of course, if it is a president of a country, then he would not have to answer questions. He can just leave after saying something. But the convention here is that the CE would come here to answer questions. No, that is not a convention. There was a time when a CE came on 8A or 8B. Different modes of approach have been adopted. I was saying that if members would accept what I propose to do, I would write a letter right away to request the CE to stay behind for elucidation or for answering questions after addressing the council. I would tell him that this is a request of the council. Now, my view is, if he says he does not have the time that day, then I would say that he should come tomorrow, because he loves it. You know, he says something and then he turns away and goes. But he should come another day. But he has the power to say he comes on the basis of 8A. Or do we have the power to ask him to come here? Well, I think council members have to act according to the law. Ms. Chen Yun-han, are you on the same point? Well, my view is, Chairman, since we are newcomers to the council, there is no policy address yet in October this year. But I hope, since he is coming to address the council, I hope he can find the time another day, if he doesn't have time on that day, to answer our questions. My feeling is, if he really wants to work closely with the Legislative Council, I would expect and hope that he would answer questions. That is exactly what I have proposed to do. Ms. Helena Wong, Chairman, the executive is accountable to the legislature. If the CE comes here, says something, and then just leaves, that is not something he should do. When he stood for election, he said that he would take a stool, a notepad, and a pen and listen to anybody who would like to speak to him. And he would come here to the council, which is a lawmaking body. How can he say that he would just come here and say something and goes? I think that is quite destructive to our relationship in the next 4 years. So when you write the letter, you should relate our very strong views to the chief executive.
Well, in relation to rules of procedure, 8A, BAC,
attend meetings of the council. 咁呢個 discretion 係佢 exercise 啦，係去唔去嗰個議會嘅會議。
Well, he has the discretion to attend the council's meeting, but when he attends the meeting, he can address the council at any time and answer members' questions. There's a B. Now, we use the conjunction and. I don't think the chief executive can pick and choose whether he would like to do it under 8A or 8B or AC. I think 8A to C would apply. If I may put this to the SG or the legal advisor, whether my interpretation is correct or not. SG. Chairman, thank you, if I may. And the legal advisor might wish to supplement in a moment. During the third term, let's go towards the end of the term, the chief executive did request to attend council meeting about a particular issue, and there were discussions as to whether he should answer questions. The president made a ruling having regard to 8A, B, and C that the chief executive could attend the council meeting, say something without having to answer any questions. So when we received from the chief executive's office this notification, we adopted these precedents in making this arrangement. Legal advisor, Mr. Ronnie Tong. Chairman, rule number 8 seems to be a little bit ambiguous. Now, if he comes and addresses the council without having to talk about anything, then he will not propose any policy measures, bill, resolution, or motion, or question for debate by and in the council, and so on. I mean, he cannot cover all these. Of course, we have to respect the ruling of the former president. I wouldn't offend the previous president, but I think if 8A presents so many problems, I think we should refer the matter to CROP to make it clearer. We have to make clear that the chief executive cannot just make an address and leave, and he has to subject himself to questioning. I mean, we can make this arrangement. Any questions? If not, then as agreed, we will be writing to the chief executive and ask him to leave some time for elucidation and questions. All right, there are 20 questions, 6 oral and 14 written. No bills, no government motion. Members' motions. There are 2. The first one is to urge the government to withdraw the curriculum guide of the moral and national education subject and requesting the Secretary for Education, Mr. Eddie Ng, to step down. Second, to legislate for the regulation of working hours. For amendments, it is today. Today is the deadline for amendments, for giving notice of amendments. The next one is the business for council meeting on October the 24th. There are 20 questions, 6 oral and 14 written. No bills for first and second reading. No government motion either. Members' motions, there are 2 there. The first one is the Northwest NT development moved by Ms. Emily Lau. The second one is the Universal Pension Scheme to be moved by Dr. Fernando Zhang. For amendments, the deadline for giving notice is Tuesday, October the 16th. Next, procedure for nomination and election of members for appointment to the Public Accounts Committee, Committee on Members' Interests, and Committee on Rules of Procedure. Please refer to LC paper number CB4 12/12 to 13. I hope that members will endorse paras 3 and 4 as well as the Appendix 4 concerning the proposal for the nomination and election of members for appointment to the committees. And also the nomination and election will take place at the House Committee on October the 19th. Any comments? If not, then all these will take place at the next meeting. The next one is determination of a date for the election of members of the Electoral Commission, paper AS 34/12 to 13. Unless members have any comments, we hope that we can get on with the election of members for the Electoral Commission at the House Committee meeting on October the 26th. Any comments? If not, next, proposed arrangement for signification of membership of Parliamentary Liaison Subcommittee, paper number CB4 13/12 to 13. At the House Committee meeting of the 4th term held on October the 10th, 2008, members agreed that it was not necessary to set a limit on the membership size of the subcommittee. Members can make nomination in writing. Any questions? If not, procedure for the nomination and election of members of the Legislative Council to advisory governing bodies, paper CB2 7/12 to 13, para 11, concerns the nomination and election procedure. The nomination and election detailed in para 13 will take place at the House Committee meeting on October the 19th. Any questions? If not, Mr. K.K. Fong proposes that a subcommittee on poverty be set up under the House Committee. Please refer to Mr. Fong's letter CB2 6/12 to 13, 04 and 05. Mr. Fong? Chairman, very briefly, I've presented the paper. I tried to make it brief. The government has set up the preparatory committee for the Commission on Poverty. When Mr. Sik Tung was chief executive, there was similar organization. And that came after LegCo's initiative in October 2004. We set up a committee to alleviate poverty. And that was very much a core problem for Hong Kong to resolve. And in January 2005, Mr. Tong set up the Commission on Poverty, and Mr. Donald Tsang dissolved that subsequently. Now, Mr. Si Wai Leung is minded to get this up and running again, and we do have committees for other things. I think that these subcommittees should be cross-departmental, and we have to set up such a committee to look at the poverty issues in Hong Kong and to follow up and monitor the initiatives adopted by the government, and also make recommendations as to how the problems can be resolved. And I hope the members would subscribe to this idea. Yes, there were two subcommittees on poverty, one under the House Committee, the other one under the Welfare Panel. There is a new approach, and that is we can have a committee under joint panels. It's up to members. Do we have it set up, or how are we going to do it? Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, if members don't have any contrary views, we can have this under the House Committee. If we have this under different panels, it would be even more complicated. If we can lay down the terms of reference, we can invite participation. Any objection? Well, the terms of reference is sent out in the letter. Any comments? If not, then we will have this committee under the House. Who would like to join? As usual, we will issue further invitations to members. Next, proposal from Dr. Kenneth Chan for moving a motion for adjournment under Rule 16.4 of the Rules of Procedure of the Council meeting on October the 17th for the purpose of debating the following issue, and that is follow-up work relating to October 1st maritime disaster. Dr. Chen. Chairman. Now, we understand that the administration is following up on the issue, and they've also been to LegCo, and we must bear in mind that there are more members who air their views than what is being done by the administration. There are questions that remained unanswered by the administration, and we hope that there are more things that the government should do. Any comments? Any objection? If not, then we recommend this to the President. We don't have an objection to this proposal. It's up to the President to hand down his ruling. We cannot twist his arms. We make recommendations. Any other business? Mr. Gary Chan would like to raise an urgent question on October the 17th. Mr. Chen, please. Chairman, thank you. Just yesterday in Taipo, there was a tree collapse causing casualties, and during the prorogation period, we have seen similar incidents involving injuries. About 2 years ago, the government set up an office looking at trees, the tree management office. So we'd like to find out what the situation is like. We don't really want to see any more casualties going forward. So under 24.4 of the Rules of Procedure, I would like to raise an urgent question subject to the consent of the President. I hope that, Chairman, you would agree with me and submit this to the President for approval. The wordings have been made available to members. Right. The Council Business Division 3 will work out the wording with you.
Ms. Emily Lau. Chairman, I don't exactly agree that Mr. Chan should ask this question. Actually, what he said was not urgent at all. He said that he would like to review the work of the Tree Management Office. All that can be taken up by a panel. Every time at our council meeting, we have 6 questions, and members have got a ballot to decide on the order of the questions. Of course, there is a mechanism to ask urgent questions, but I hope members will agree that only urgent matters should be the subject of urgent questions, or else there will be 8 questions or 10 questions if members regard everything as urgent. If there are too many things discussed at council, the public and the media cannot really focus on what is important. But of course, sometimes something is important, just like what Lemon Kwong said. If the elephant is in the room, we'll all be able to see it. So I don't know what this is. Why this is so urgent. He is asking our views, and then he said that he would like to propose it to the President. So pardon me for my views. Mr. Kenneth Chan, actually yesterday I wrote a letter to the Development Bureau and also the Lands Department as well as the TMO. I asked them to respond to public queries on the incident ASAP. Now, I'd like to know what Mr. Gary Chan thinks about what Ms. Emily Lau said a moment ago. I agree that we can talk about the timing for the question. Well, we don't need a debate here. Mr. Gary Chan is asking for comments. If we have any support, then we can go to the President to tell him his view, and then the President will make a ruling. Mr. Jeffrey Lam. Chairman, during the last term, we actually also advanced views and comments on urgent questions. Very often, members would ask urgent questions on things that have happened during the previous week. Now, whether this is an urgent question, Mr. Gary Chan is saying that he is concerned about the health of trees in Hong Kong, and he has mentioned that during the attack of Typhoon Vicente in August, many trees did collapse. Actually, this question covers quite a wide scope. I would say that it would be more appropriate to have this handled by a panel, and I don't think a question allowing us 20 minutes would help us resolve all the issues. Therefore, I think that we should approach urgent questions with more caution. Don't say that since you haven't got a lot out of the 6 questions, you would like to ask urgent questions so you can jump the queue. Mr. Christopher Chung, I think this is a serious incident because someone actually died and another one was injured. Yesterday, I went to Victoria Park together with an LCSD manager, and actually I found out that 6 to 7 trees were sick. They were cordoned off from the public. And it is not just about typhoon attacks. These sick trees are time bombs. We have the responsibility to monitor the work of the administration, and it should provide information to us to let us know where there is danger throughout Hong Kong. Mrs. Regina Ip, let me make a fair statement. I remember last time, in the last term, there was a tree collapse and somebody died, and I actually wanted to ask an urgent question, and it was allowed by the President. I don't know whether it was the timing or the wording of the question. I remember it was before the typhoon season in June and July. Maybe because of the timing, the President allowed the question because the time would be right to check the trees before typhoon attacks. So, Chairman, maybe you should study into this issue for any urgency together with the President. But talking about asking an urgent question after a tree collapse and death and injuries caused, I myself asked that question in the last term. Here, we will just register our support, or otherwise, the ruling will still be made by the President. Well, I'm not saying I oppose to it. I have no power to rule whether this is an urgent. Mr. Raymond Chan, I went to Lam Tsuen this morning because yesterday I heard a report saying that some officials said that it was a remote place, but actually that was not a remote place at all. It was from Lam Kam Tsuen turning into Lam Kam Road. So actually, I like to ask government officials whether they were trying to shirk responsibility by filing that report. Any other members? You will be the last speaker, Mr. Gary Chan. Any other members? Mr. Chen Han Pan? Chairman, we are still during the typhoon season. In Pacific Ocean, and other typhoon is gathering. We have a long typhoon season in Hong Kong. Well, does that matter? Mr. Lee Shek-yang. Maybe the relevant panel can hold a meeting soon enough to discuss this, so we have more time to discuss the issue. Because next week we are going to elect the chairman and vice chairman of panels already. I think that would be the forum for us to ask all the questions we'd like to ask. So perhaps we should let the Home Affairs panel know that we would like to take up the issue as soon as possible. I'm sure maybe within the week or next, we can have an hour or so for the issue to be discussed at the HAP, and that would be more helpful. So why don't we send a clear message to the HAP. Of course, we don't have any chairman of the HAP yet, but if there is such a strong concern, and Mr. Gary Chen is also very concerned, can we not transfer this to the HAP? I'll allow Mr. Gary Chen to have the last word on this discussion. And if there are diverse views, we have to put this to the vote. Mr. Chen. Thank you, Chairman. I agree that members may attach different degrees of importance to different matters in our hearts, but I would still say that we should hold a discussion on this incident ASAP. And if you could read my question, in part 1 of the question, I have demanded an immediate explanation from the administration. How many dangerous trees are there in heavily populated areas? I think this is urgent. Maybe some members don't think this is of any importance. Maybe they need a big number of casualties before they would think that this is urgent. But to me, I would of course respect your views. If you do not agree that this should be ruled upon by the President, I would accept it. But I would say that before any panel is returned, I'd still like to follow this up ASAP to avert possible other accidents. And of course, I would say that we can follow this up in a panel. Okay, anyone who would object to putting this to the President for a ruling? If you object, we have to put it to a vote. Chairman, why don't you do this? You just tell the President that members have different views and then he can make his own decision. You can say that some members say he should allow the questions, others think otherwise. Okay, we'll refer this question to the President for a ruling. Okay, last item. Just now, the clerk gave us an up-to-date position on the signification of membership of panels as at 12 noon today. I'd like to remind members that tomorrow, the 13th of October, 12 noon would be the deadline for your signification of membership of panels. I can see that over 20 members have not filed their returns. Please grasp the opportunity to join panels. If indeed the deadline is passed, does it mean that there will be dire consequences? What would be the consequence for members who would miss the deadline? Well, if you still want to join a panel after the deadline, you have to inform the chairman and vice chairman of the panels, and you would not be able to elect the chairman and vice chairman of panels. If you like to join panels after the deadline, your application will be handled only after the chairman and vice chairman are elected, unless you are sick or out of Hong Kong, so you cannot signify your intention before the deadline. Thank you for the clarification. You know the competition is fierce for chairman and vice chairman of panels. If there is nothing else under